The blue-green planet Ashara Prime looked peaceful from space. Its 3 small moons cast gentle light on the crystal cities below. For 300 years, the Vidians had lived here in perfect harmony. They were tall, thin beings with skin like tree bark and eyes that glowed soft yellow. They moved slowly and thought carefully about everything they did. Commander. Kella worked in the deep space listening station that morning. Her long fingers moved over the crystal controls as she monitored signals from across the galaxy. Us, the Vidians, had built a network of friends among the stars. When someone needed help, they always answered, but they did it the right way, the planning and patience. The signal came without warning. It burst through the peaceful morning like a scream. Kella jumped back from her station as alien sounds filled the air. The voice was harsh and quick, speaking in a language she had never heard before. But the universal distress codes were clear. Someone was dying. "This is Commander Lisa Bennett of the Earth's exploration vessel Horizon," the voice said through the translation system. "We have crashed on planet Kithra 7. Hull breach critical. Environmental systems failing. 12 crew members alive. We need immediate assistance." Kella's hands shook as she recorded the message. Earth. She had never heard of this place. These beings called themselves humans. The signal had traveled for weeks to reach them, which meant the crash had happened long ago. These creatures might already be dead. She sent the signal up to the council. Immediately, far away on Kithra 7, Captain Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his face and looked at the broken remains of his ship. The Horizon had been beautiful once, a sleek vessel designed for deep space exploration. Now it looked like a metal skeleton picked clean by vultures. "How long until the environmental systems give out completely?" he asked Chief Engineer Maya Rodriguez. Maya looked up from the smoking control panel she was trying to fix. Her uniform was torn and dirty. "Maybe 2 days if we're lucky," she said. "The crash damaged everything. I can keep life support running. A little longer, but not much." Jake nodded and tried not to show his fear. 12 people were depending on him to get them home. But Kithra 7 was not like any world they had ever seen. The gravity was twice as strong as Earth normal. The air burned their throats even through their breathing masks. And the things that lived here wanted to kill them. Through the cracked windows, he could see shapes moving in the orange mist outside. The creatures they had started calling melt cats were getting braver. They were about the size of earth lions, but covered in scales that dripped acid. Their claws could cut through metal, and they were smart enough to work together. Sir called Medical Officer Danny Walsh from the back of the ship. "Peterson is getting worse. I need better medical supplies to help him." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. Peterson had broken his leg in the crash. Without proper treatment, infection would kill him, but their medical supplies were almost gone. Everything they needed to survive was running out. "Keep doing what you can, Danny," Jake said. "Help is coming." He hoped he was telling the truth. Back on Ashara Prime, the council chamber filled with worried voices. 50 Vidian leaders sat in a circle, their yellow eyes glowing brighter when they were upset. Ambassador Zathera stood in the center, holding the human distress signal. "These beings call themselves humans," she said in her slow, musical voice. "They come from a world called Earth. We know nothing about them, but they are clearly in great danger." Elder Mothin raised one long arm. "Where did they crash?" "Kithra 7, Zathera answered. The chamber fell silent. Every Vidian knew that name. Kithra 7 was in the Crimson Sector, a region of space that killed everything that entered it. Planet itself was a nightmare of crushing gravity, poison air, and deadly creatures. 3 different species had tried to explore it over the centuries. None had returned. "That changes everything," Elder Mothin said quietly. "No rescue mission has ever succeeded in the Crimson Sector. The Nautiloids lost 2 ships there 50 years ago. The Resonance refused to even discuss it. But these humans are dying," Zathera said. "We cannot simply ignore their call for help." "Of course not," agreed Elder Vashti. "We must try to save them, but we must be careful. We cannot risk our own people needlessly." The debate went on for hours. The Vidians talked about different plans and approaches. Some wanted to send probe ships first to study the planet. Others thought they should contact their allies for help. A few suggested trying to reach the humans by radio. To learn more about their situation, Jake would have laughed if he could have heard them talking. His people had maybe 2 days to live, and the aliens were having committee meetings. On Kithra 7, the situation was getting worse by the hour. The Melt Cats had figured out that the humans were trapped. More of them gathered outside the ship each day. They tested the hull with their claws, looking for weak spots. When they found the holes the crash had made, they pushed their snouts inside and snapped their jaws at anything that moved. "We can't stay here much longer," Jake told his crew. "The ship is falling apart, and those things are getting bolder." "Where can we go?" asked Maya. "This whole planet wants to kill us." Jake studied the maps they had made before crashing. There's a cave system about 2 kilometers north. Rocky ground harder for those cats to dig through, if we can make it. There, we might be able to hide until help arrives. "If help arrives," muttered pilot Steve Chen. "Help will come," Jake said firmly. "Someone heard our signal. Someone always hears." He was right about that. But he had no idea what kind of someone was listening. The Vidian Council finally reached a decision after 2 full days of discussion. They would mount a rescue mission, but it would be done properly. First, they would contact their allied species and ask for help. The nautiloids were good with water worlds. The resonants could handle extreme temperatures. The ethereals could survive in poisonous atmospheres. Then they would study everything. Known about Kithra 7, they would build special ships and equipment designed for the planet's deadly conditions. They would train rescue teams and plan every detail of the operation. It would take time, maybe 6 months, possibly more. But it would be safe and professional. Kithra sent the first messages to their allies that evening. She explained about the humans and their terrible situation. She asked each species to contribute what they could to the rescue effort. The responses came back slowly over the next few days. Everyone wanted to help, but Kithra 7 scared them all, the nautiloid said. They would send technical advisors. The resonants offered to share their atmospheric data. The ethereals promised to study the planet's chemical composition from a safe distance. It was something, but not much. Few experts and some old survey reports would not save the dying humans, but Kithra did not know that other ears had heard. The distress signal. Far away, past the edge of Vidian space, automated monitoring stations had recorded the emergency broadcast. They had sent it racing across space toward a small blue world where beings very much like the stranded humans were waiting. Earth had heard the call, and Earth was already moving. Jake Morrison had no way of knowing that help was coming much sooner than anyone expected. He was too busy trying to keep his people alive one more day. The environmental systems had finally given up that morning. The air inside the horizon was getting thin and bitter. "We moved to the caves today," he announced to his crew. "Pack everything we can carry, leave everything we can't." It would be a dangerous journey across 2 kilometers of hostile ground with injured crew members and limited supplies. The Melt Cats would follow them. The poisonous air would burn their lungs. The heavy gravity would exhaust them, but staying in the dying ship meant certain death, at least in the caves. They might have a chance. Jake looked up at the orange sky one more time before they left. Somewhere out there, he hoped, someone was coming to help them. He just hoped they would arrive. In time, Admiral Patricia Hayes was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency signal reached Earth. The message had bounced through 12 relay stations across human space before arriving at Frontier Command. She read it 3 times before hitting the alarm button. "All senior staff to the command center immediately," she announced over the intercom. "We have a code red rescue situation." Within minutes, her best officers filled the room. Captain Ryan Cooper stood at attention near the tactical display. Colonel Sam Rodriguez checked his weapon automatically, a habit from too many emergency deployments. Communications Officer Rachel Stone was already pulling up star charts and calculating jump routes. "We have 12 humans stranded on a hostile world," Admiral Hayes began. "They've been there for weeks. Their ship is destroyed and their supplies are almost gone." She activated the holographic display showing Kithra 7. The planet looked like a ball of orange and red poison hanging in space. Radiation readings flashed warning colors across the screen. "Jesus," whispered Captain Cooper. That place is a nightmare. Gravity twice, Earth normal, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature variations. What the hell were they doing there? Deep space exploration, Hayes replied. The Horizon was mapping unknown systems when they had engine failure. They crash-landed and have been sending distress signals ever since. Colonel Rodriguez studied the planetary data with professional interest. Hostile native life forms. Unknown. But assume yes. This is a Class 12 death world. Everything there will try to kill you. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed the information. Class 12 death world was as bad as planets got. Most species in the galaxy would not even attempt to land on such a place. But humans were not most species. How long until we can launch? Cooper asked. Hayes smiled grimly. The Defiance is fueled and ready. You can launch in 2 hours. 2 hours? Rachel Stone looked up from her calculations. Admiral, it will take at least 15 hours to reach Kithra 7 at maximum burn. Add 3 hours for final approach and atmospheric entry. We're looking at 18 hours total. Then we better hurry, Hayes said simply. Far away on Ashara Prime, Ambassador Zethare was still waiting for replies from allied species. The Nautiloids had promised to send technical advisors, but they would not arrive for another month. The Resonants were preparing detailed atmospheric analysis, but that would take weeks to complete. The Ethereals were studying the problem from their gas giant homeworld, which meant months of careful observation. She did not know that. Earth's response had already been decided in under 10 minutes. The Defiance was a heavy cruiser built for frontier operations. Like the elegant ships other species created, it was designed to take damage and keep fighting. Its hull was thick armor plating. Its engines were powerful enough to escape most gravity wells. Its weapons could crack small moons. Captain Cooper walked through the ship as his crew prepared for emergency departure. In the cargo bay, Colonel Rodriguez was selecting his rescue team from Marine volunteers. Every man and woman who stepped forward knew they might not come back. I need specialists, Rodriguez told them. Demolitions, medical communications, and combat. This won't be a normal rescue. We're going into hell itself. Sergeant Tony Chen raised his hand first. He had blown up enemy positions on 6 different worlds and survived atmospheric drops through hostile fire. I can handle demo work, Colonel. Dr. Amanda Foster stepped forward next. She was young for a xenobiologist, but she had studied life forms on dozens of hostile worlds. I know how alien ecosystems work, sir. I can help identify threats. Corpsman Luke Thompson volunteered for medical duty. It kept soldiers alive in conditions that would kill most people. I've worked in worse places than this, Colonel. Communications specialist Rachel Stone completed the team. She could maintain contact with the ship even through the worst interference. I'll make sure we can call for extraction when the time comes. Rodriguez looked at his team with satisfaction. For people to rescue 12 from a planet that killed everything that touched it, most species would call it suicide. Humans called it Tuesday. Gear up, he ordered. We launch in 90 minutes. Meanwhile, the Vidian Council was still debating. Elder Mothan had raised concerns about the safety of their own rescue ships. Elder Vashti wanted more detailed studies of the planet's atmospheric conditions. Ambassador Zethara argued for faster action, but she was outnumbered by those who preferred caution. We cannot risk our people unnecessarily, Mothan said for the 10th time that day. A hasty rescue attempt will only create more victims. But these humans are dying while we debate, Zethara replied. Every day we wait makes their situation worse. Better to plan carefully than to fail completely, Vashti added. The Crimson Sector has claimed many lives already. On Kithra 7, Jake Morrison was discovering just how right they were. His crew had made it to the cave system, but the journey had cost them dearly. Peterson's broken leg was infected now, and Danny Walsh was running out of medicine. The Meltcats had followed them, and more were arriving every hour. They're organized, Maya Rodriguez reported from her position near the cave entrance. They're posting guards and sending scouts to look for other ways in. These things are smart. Jake nodded grimly. The creatures were learning their patterns and adapting their tactics. Soon they would find a way into the caves, and then his people would have nowhere left to run. "How's our water situation?" he asked. "2 days? Maybe 3 if we ration carefully," Maya replied. "Food is worse. It's maybe 1 day of field rations left." Jake did the math in his head. They had survived this long by being careful and smart, but they were running out of options. The rescue fleet the aliens had promised would take months to arrive. His people would be dead long before then. The Defiance launched exactly on schedule. As it accelerated away from Earth, Captain Cooper opened a channel to Frontier Command. "Admiral, we're departing for Kithra 7 now. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. Understood, Captain? What's your plan for atmospheric entry?" Cooper looked at the planetary data again. The atmosphere was a soup of corrosive chemicals that would eat through most ship hulls in minutes. The gravity well was deep enough to trap unwary vessels. The surface was covered in violent storms. "We're going straight in," he said simply, fast and direct. Admiral Hayes smiled despite her worry. That was the human way. While other species spent months planning elaborate approaches, humans just aimed for the target and hit the gas. "Good hunting, Captain. Bring our people home?" The Defiance disappeared into hyperspace with a flash of blue light. "Ambassador."
"Oh."
Zathera was reviewing technical specifications when her aide brought disturbing news. "Ambassador, our deep space monitors have detected a ship heading for Kithra 7 at extreme velocity." Zathera looked up sharply. "One of our allies?" "No, ma'am. The design is unknown. They're traveling much faster than safety protocols recommend." "Show me." The holographic display revealed a strange vessel cutting through space like a spear, thrown by an angry god. Its design was alien to Vidian eyes, angular where their ships were curved, armored where theirs were elegant. Who would be foolish enough to approach Kithra 7 at such speed? As Zathera wondered aloud. Her aide checked the communications logs. "Ma'am, I believe these may be the humans. Impossible. We haven't even established contact with their species yet." How could they know about the rescue? But even as she said it, Zathera began to understand. These humans had their own monitoring networks. They had heard the distress call and responded immediately, without consultation or planning. They were rushing towards certain death with the same casual attitude their stranded crew had shown when exploring unknown space. What kind of beings did such things? Colonel Rodriguez was asking himself the same question as he studied the mission briefings. Everything about human behavior should have been impossible according to galactic standards. They lived on a world that would kill most species in minutes. They had survived ice ages, volcanic explosions, asteroid impacts, and wars that lasted centuries. And when their own kind were in danger, they didn't hesitate to risk everything to help. Colonel Dr. Foster said, looking up from her research. "I've been studying the data on Kithra 7's ecosystem. The gravity and atmospheric conditions should prevent the evolution of large predators." "Should prevent, but didn't?" Rodriguez asked. "Exactly. Which means anything that survived there is incredibly dangerous. We're looking at apex predators that can function in conditions that would kill most Earth life forms." Rodriguez nodded. "So we'll be fighting things that are as tough as us, but evolved to live in hell." "That's about right, sir." Rodriguez grinned. "Sounds like fun." Dr. Foster stared at him in amazement. Most people would be terrified at the prospect of fighting alien predators on a poisoned world. The colonel looked like he was looking forward to it. Maybe that was what separated humans from other species. They didn't just survive in dangerous conditions, they thrived on the challenge. The Defiance continued its high-speed run toward Kithra 7, caring for humans who were about to attempt something the galaxy considered impossible. Behind them, Earth continued its normal routine, confident that their people would handle the situation. The EU's Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kithra 7 system like a meteor aimed at hell. Captain Cooper stood on the bridge, watching the orange world grow larger on the main screen. Violent storms swirled across its surface, and radiation warnings flashed red across every monitor. "Atmospheric entry in 12 minutes, reported Navigation Officer Lisa Park. "Sir, I'm reading massive electromagnetic interference. Those storms are going to make landing very difficult." "Define difficult," Cooper said calmly. 90% chance of hull breach during descent. The atmospheric chemicals will eat through our armor in minutes. Cooper nodded as if she had told him it might rain. Any ships still flying after we land? If we're lucky, maybe 40 minutes before total system failure, then we better work fast. Take us in. Full burn. Far away on their monitoring station, Vidian observers watched in horror as the human ship dove straight into Kithra 7's atmosphere. Ambassador Zethara stood frozen at her console, unable to believe what she was seeing. "They're going to die," whispered her aide. "No ship can survive that kind of atmospheric assault." But the Defiance did not die. Its armored hull sparked and smoked as acid rain hammered the metal, but it kept flying. Where Vidian ships would have dissolved in minutes, human engineering held together through sheer brutal strength. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Engineering Officer Mark Johnson over the intercom. Sealing now. Atmospheric processors. Offline," called out Systems Specialist Jennifer Torres, switching to backup oxygen. Captain Cooper watched his ship take damage that would cripple most vessels, but the Defiance had been built to fight wars in space. A little acid rain was not going to stop it. "Landing zone in sight," announced pilot Tom Bradley. "I can see. The crash site. Looks like the horizon broke into 3 pieces. Any life signs? Negative on the ship. But I'm reading heat signatures about 2 kilometers north. Looks like they made it to the caves. Set us down between the crash site and the cave system. We'll approach on foot." "Sir, that puts us right in the middle of a pack of those predator creatures." Cooper smiled grimly. "Good, then we won't have to hunt for them." Colonel Rodriguez and his team were already suited up in the cargo bay. Their equipment was simple compared to what other species would bring. Breathing masks instead of full environmental suits, basic armor instead of radiation shields, and weapons designed for close combat instead of long-range precision. "Remember, this is a grab-and-go operation," Rodriguez told his team. "We find the survivors, we get them to the ship, and we leave. No heroics, no extended ground operations. The planet wants to kill us, so we don't give it time to try." Dr. Foster checked her scanner readings. "Colonel, I'm detecting massive biosignatures converging on our landing site. Those predators are coming to investigate." "How many?" "At least 30. Possibly more." Sergeant Chen grinned as he checked his demolition charges. 30 alien cats against 4 humans? Seems fair. The Defiance touched down on Kithra 7's surface. With a grinding crash that shook the entire ship, immediately, alarms began blaring as the planet's poisonous atmosphere started eating through the hull. "Go, go, go," Rodriguez shouted as the cargo bay doors opened. The rescue team rushed out into hell itself. The gravity hit them like a hammer, making every step feel like walking through mud. The air burned their throats, even through their breathing masks. The ground was covered in a slippery orange moss that tried to trip them with every step, and the melt cats were waiting. The first creature attacked before the team had gone 50 meters, came out of the acidic mist like a nightmare given form. 3 meters long, covered in scales that dripped burning liquid, with claws that could cut through steel. Luke Thompson barely had time to raise his rifle before the thing was on him, but years of combat training kicked in automatically. He rolled aside as the creature's claws raked the ground where he had been standing, then put 3 shots into its chest at point-blank range. The melt cat screamed and collapsed its acid, blood hissing as it hit the ground. "Contact front," Rodriguez called out, but his team was already moving. They had trained for situations like this: hostile environment, unknown enemies, limited time. It was just another day at the office. More melt cats emerged from the mist, moving with pack coordination that would have impressed Earthwolves. But they had never faced humans before. They expected prey that would run or freeze in terror. Instead, they found predators that fought back with deadly efficiency. Dr. Foster dropped to one knee and started scanning the creatures as bullets flew over her head. "They're using group tactics," she called out. "Alpha predators with support roles, but they're not expecting return fire." "Any weaknesses?" Rodriguez asked as he reloaded. "Standard mammalian structure. Center mass shots should work. But watch out for the acid. It's concentrated sulfuric compound." The battle was quick and brutal. The melt cats were tough and smart, but they had evolved to hunt prey that couldn't fight back effectively. Humans had evolved to hunt everything, including each other. When the shooting stopped, 8 alien predators lay dead around the landing site. Movement to the north, Chen reported. More of them coming. Then we move faster, Rodriguez said. Foster, lead us to those caves. The team advanced across Kithra's sevens. Hostile surface like a small army. They moved in tactical formation, covering each other's movements and watching for threats. The heavy gravity slowed them down, but not as much as it would have affected other species. Humans had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. High gravity was just another challenge to overcome. In the caves ahead, Jake Morrison heard the sound of gunfire echoing across the wasteland. What the hell was that? Maya? Rodriguez asked, crawling to the cave entrance to look outside. Gunfire, Jake said with sudden hope. Someone's fighting the Meltcats, but who? The aliens said it would take months to mount a rescue. Jake grabbed his binoculars and peered through the cave opening. Through the orange mist, he could see shapes moving toward them. For figures in unfamiliar armor, advancing with military precision. I don't know who they are, he said, but they're human. His crew gathered around him in amazement. Peterson, despite his infected leg, tried to sit up. Danny Walsh checked his remaining medical supplies. Everyone stared at the approaching figures, as if they were seeing ghosts. How is that possible? Maya whispered. We're hundreds of light years from human space. I don't care how, Jake said firmly. Get ready to move. We may only have one chance at this. Outside, Rodriguez's team was fighting a running battle toward the caves. More Meltcats kept appearing, drawn by the noise and smell of combat. But the creatures were learning that humans were not easy prey. Several packs had already retreated. After losing too many members, cave entrance ahead, Foster reported. I'm reading human life signs inside. How many? 12 signatures, but some are weak. Looks like injured personnel. Rodriguez nodded. That matched the distress signal. Chen, blow us a path to that entrance. Luke, get ready to provide covering fire. Foster, start scanning for the best route back to the ship. The demolition charges exploded with thunderous roars that echoed. Across the wasteland, rock and alien creatures flew through the air as Chen cleared obstacles from their path. The sound brought more melt cats running, but it also announced to the trapped survivors that help had arrived. Jake Morrison led his crew out of the caves just as Rodriguez's team reached the entrance. For a moment, both groups stared at each other. Across the hellish landscape, Captain Morrison, Rodriguez called out. That's me, and you are. Colonel Sam Rodriguez, Earth Marine Corps, we're here to take you home. Jake felt tears in his eyes behind his breathing mask. How did you get here so fast? We left as soon as we got your signal, Rodriguez said simply, as if crossing hundreds of light years in 18 hours was perfectly normal. Can your people move? Peterson's got a broken leg, but we can carry him. Everyone else is mobile. Good, we've got about 30 minutes before this planet eats our ship. Let's move. The combined group began fighting their way back toward the Defiance. 16 humans against an entire hostile world, loaded down with injured personnel and limited supplies. By any rational standard, it should have been impossible. But humans had never been particularly rational about impossible things. More Meltcats attacked during the retreat, emerging from hidden tunnels and rocky outcroppings. But now they faced not just for trained soldiers, but 12 desperate survivors who had been fighting for their lives for weeks. The Horizon crew had learned to be dangerous during their time on KYTHERA-7. Maya Rodriguez used her engineering tools as weapons, electrocuting creatures that got too close. Danny Walsh fought with medical instruments, protecting his patients with fierce determination. Even Peterson, carried between 2 other crew members, managed to shoot at attacking predators with his sidearm. These people have adapted, Dr. Foster observed, as she watched the survivors fight. They've learned to survive in conditions that should have killed them. That's what humans do, Rodriguez replied, dropping another Meltcat with precise rifle. Fire. We adapt. The Defiance came into view through the orange mist, its hull smoking from atmospheric damage, but still intact. Captain Cooper's voice crackled over the radio. The used Defiance climbed through Kithra 7's poisonous atmosphere with alarms blaring throughout the ship. Hull breaches on 3 decks vented toxic gas into the corridors. The engine systems were failing one by one, but Captain Cooper kept the ship climbing toward the safety of space. Hull integrity at 30% and falling, reported Engineering Officer Johnson. We're not going to make it to orbit at this rate. We'll make it, Cooper said firmly. Seal what you can, vent what you can't. Just keep us flying for 10 more minutes. In the medical bay, Luke Thompson worked frantically to save Peterson's life. The infection from his broken leg had spread through his bloodstream. Without proper treatment, he would die within hours. I need a full surgical suite, Thompson told Danny Walsh. This is beyond field medicine. We don't have one, Walsh replied. The Horizon's medical bay was destroyed in the crash. Thompson looked at the dying man and made a decision that would have horrified medical professionals from other species. Then we improvise. Help me set up a sterile field using the cargo bay. I'm going to operate here. Dr. Foster stared at him in amazement. You're going to perform surgery on a moving ship with improvised equipment? I've done worse, Thompson said simply. Once operated on a Marine during a space battle. Ship was spinning end over end, but the patient lived. That was the difference, Foster realized. Other species would wait for perfect conditions before attempting dangerous procedures. Humans just adapted and did what needed to be done. Meanwhile, Ambassador Zathera watched the human ship escape from Kithra 7 with emotions she could not name. Her people had spent 3 days planning a careful rescue mission that might take months to execute. These humans had accomplished the same goal in less than 20 hours. How is this possible? She asked her aide. No species can survive direct exposure to a Class 12 death world. Perhaps they are not like other species, the aide replied quietly. Zathera studied the data from their sensors. The human ship had taken damage that would have destroyed most vessels, but it kept functioning. The rescue team had fought alien predators that could kill trained soldiers, but they had won every encounter. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to consider their actions normal. Get me everything we can find about these humans, she ordered. I want to know what kind of beings we are dealing with. The search revealed information that made Zathera's blood run cold. Earth was indeed a death world, maybe the worst death world in known space. Crushing gravity, violent weather, aggressive predators, toxic plant life, and massive geological disasters occurred regularly. Most planets with even one of these characteristics were considered uninhabitable. Earth had all of them, and humans called it home. Look at this, her aide said, pulling up more data. Their entire evolutionary history is one long series of extinction events. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate changes. Everything that should have wiped them out just made them stronger. Zathera read the files with growing horror. Humans had survived the death of 90% of all species on their planet. They had lived through ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They had endured volcanic winters that blocked out their sun. They had fought wars against each other that used weapons capable of destroying entire cities. And through it all, they had not just survived, they had thrived. What have we encountered? She whispered. On the Defiance, Colonel Rodriguez was asking himself similar questions as he watched Luke Thompson operate on Peterson in an improvised surgical suite. The corpsman worked with steady hands despite the ship's violent shaking, using medical tools designed for field conditions to perform procedures that should require a hospital. How's he doing? Rodriguez asked. He'll live, Thompson replied, without looking up from his work. The infection was bad, but not as bad as some I've seen. Give me another hour, and he'll be stable enough for proper treatment. Rodriguez nodded and moved on to check the other survivors. They were all exhausted, malnourished, and suffering from weeks of exposure to hostile conditions. But they were alive, and more importantly, they were adapting. Maya Rodriguez had already started helping with repairs to the ship's damaged systems. Your engineering is different from ours, she told Johnson, but the principles are the same. I can help patch those hull breaches. Danny Walsh was working with the ship's medical team, sharing what he had learned about treating injuries on Kithra 7. The atmospheric toxins cause unusual tissue damage. he explained. Standard treatments don't work. Have to flush the system completely before beginning regeneration therapy. Even Peterson, despite his surgery, was giving tactical briefings about the Meltcats. They hunt in coordinated packs, he told Dr. Foster from his hospital bed. But they're not prepared for prey that fights back effectively. Loud noises confuse them, and bright lights hurt their eyes. Dr. Foster recorded everything carefully. These humans had learned more about Kithra 7's ecosystem in a few weeks than scientific expeditions typically discovered in years of study. But their methods would have horrified any proper xenobiologist. You learned all this through direct observation? She asked Jake Morrison. We learned it by staying alive, Jake replied. When something tries to kill you, you figure out how to kill it back. That's basic survival. Foster thought about the Vidian approach to studying hostile life forms. Careful observation from safe distances, detailed analysis of behavior patterns. Months of theoretical modeling before any direct contact. The humans had simply walked into the middle of the ecosystem and started fighting whatever attacked them. It should have gotten them all killed. Instead, it had made them experts. Your people seem very comfortable with violence, Foster observed. Carefully, Jake looked at her with tired eyes. Comfortable isn't the right word. We're good at it because we have to be. Earth taught us that the universe doesn't care if you live or die. If you want to survive, you fight for it. That was when Foster began to understand what made humans different. Other species had evolved on worlds where cooperation and careful planning were rewarded. Humans had evolved on a world where quick thinking and aggressive action meant the difference between life and death. They were not more violent than other species by choice. They were more violent because their world had given them no choice but to become deadly. Captain Cooper announced over the intercom that they had reached safe orbit. The immediate danger was over, but the implications of what had happened were just beginning to sink in. Colonel Cooper called Rodriguez to the bridge. We're receiving communication requests from multiple alien ships. Looks like the locals want to talk. Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing several Vidian vessels maintaining careful distance from the Defiance. What do they want? Unknown. But they seemed very interested in what we just did. Rodriguez thought about it for a moment. The rescue had been routine by human standards, but clearly these aliens saw it differently. Tell them we'll talk, but only after we get our people proper medical treatment, understood Colonel. Dr. Foster continued her interviews with the survivors, trying to understand how they had adapted so quickly to an impossible situation. What she learned changed her understanding of human nature forever. The Horizon crew had not just survived. On Kithra 7, they had started to dominate it. They'd learned to predict Meltcat behavior and set traps. Had found edible plants and safe water sources. They had begun mapping the cave systems for potential expansion, given a few more months. Foster realized they would have turned the Deathworld into a human colony. You were planning to stay? She asked Jake in amazement. We were planning to survive, he corrected. If rescue didn't come, we would have made the best of it. Humans adapt, that's what we do. Forster thought about her own people, who required years of preparation before attempting to colonize even the most hospitable worlds. These humans had been ready to turn hell itself into a home simply because they had no other choice. Ambassador Zathera was reaching similar conclusions as she reviewed the sensor data from the rescue. The human tactics had been brutal, but effective. They had not tried to avoid the planet's dangers, they had confronted them directly, won through superior violence. When Meltcats attacked, the humans had killed them faster than they could reproduce. When the atmosphere tried to poison them, they had simply endured it long enough to complete their mission. When gravity tried to crush them, they had kept moving anyway. They had not survived Kithra 7. They had conquered it in less than a day. These humans, Zathera said to her aide, they are not like us at all. No, Ambassador. They are something entirely different. Zathera thought about the implications. The galaxy was full of peaceful species who solved problems through cooperation and careful planning. They had built a civilization based on mutual aid and shared knowledge. It had worked well for thousands of years, but now they had encountered a species that solved problems through direct action and controlled violence. A species that did not wait for help, but provided it instead. a species that saw impossible challenges as interesting puzzles to solve. The rescue of the Horizon. Crew had taken 18 hours. The Vidian rescue mission was still being planned. 6 days later? What does this mean for the galaxy? Raid asked. 2 weeks after the rescue, Admiral Patricia Hayes arrived at Ashara Prime aboard the diplomatic vessel Use Harmony. The ship was smaller than the Defiance but carried something more important than weapons. The future of human-alien relations. Ambassador. Kithra waited in the orbital station's main docking bay, surrounded by representatives from a dozen different species. Word of the human rescue had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Everyone wanted to meet these mysterious beings who treated Deathworlds like public parks. When the airlock opened, Hayes stepped through, wearing simple dress uniform and a confident smile. She was followed by Captain Jake Morrison, now fully recovered, and Dr. Foster, who had requested to serve as scientific liaison. Ambassador Kithra Hayes said with a slight bow, "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I believe we have much to discuss." Kithra studied the human admiral carefully. Hayes was smaller than most Vidians, but moved with predatory grace that made several alien observers step back nervously. Her eyes were alert and intelligent, constantly scanning for threats that existed only in human imagination. Admiral Hayes Kithra replied formally, "Your people's actions have caused quite a stir in our peaceful galaxy. We're curious too. Learn more about your species and your intentions." "Our intentions are simple," Hayes said. "We want to help. When someone sends a distress signal, we answer it. That's what neighbors do." The word neighbors sent murmurs through the assembled aliens. Most species in the galaxy maintained careful diplomatic relationships based on treaties and trade agreements. The idea of simply helping strangers because they needed help was almost incomprehensible. Elder Mothan stepped forward from the Vidian delegation. "Admiral, your rescue of the Horizon crew was impressive, but also deeply troubling.
You sent
Armed soldiers to a death world and engaged in violent combat with native life forms. This is not how civilized species operate." Hayes considered this for a moment. "Elder, with respect, your civilized approach would have left 12 humans dead on that planet. Sometimes the choice isn't between violence and peace, it's between violence and death." "But surely there were other options," insisted Elder Vashti. "Negotiation, careful planning, technological solutions that didn't require killing." Captain Morrison spoke up. "Ma'am, those melt cats weren't interested in negotiation, they wanted to eat us. When something tries to eat you, you either kill it first or become dinner. It's that simple." Dr. Foster added her scientific perspective. "The ecosystem on Kithra 7 is based on predation and survival. The dominant species respond only to superior force. Attempting negotiation would have been interpreted as weakness and resulted in more aggressive attacks. The assembled aliens struggled to understand this concept. Most galactic species had evolved beyond predatory behavior millennia ago. The idea that some problems could only be solved through controlled violence was alien to their thinking. Ambassador, the clay of the nautiloids raised a tentacle nervously. "Admiral Hayes, our records indicate that your species still engages in warfare against itself. How can we trust beings who fight their own kind?" Hayes nodded calmly. "Because we know the cost of war, we work hard to prevent it.
Right.
But when peaceful solutions fail, we're prepared to fight. That's not a weakness. It's what allows us to protect others who can't protect themselves." "Like the Horizon crew," Kithra observed. "Exactly. Your people tried to help them using your methods. We helped them using ours. The difference is that our methods worked in time to save lives." The truth of this statement hung in the air like an uncomfortable weight. The Vidian rescue fleet was still being assembled, weeks behind schedule. Their careful, consensus-based approach would have resulted in a perfectly planned mission to recover 12 corpses. Elder Mothan tried a different approach. "Your species seems to seek out dangerous situations. You explore unknown systems, colonize hostile worlds, and now you want to make rescue operations in deadly regions routine. This suggests an unhealthy attraction to risk." Hayes smiled. "Elder, humans don't seek danger for its own sake. We seek opportunity. Some of the most valuable discoveries in our history have come from places other people considered too dangerous to explore. We've found new medicines in poisonous plants, new energy sources in violent storms, and new homes on worlds that tried to kill us. She gestured toward the viewport showing Kithra 7 in the distance. That planet contains mineral deposits worth more than most star systems. Its atmospheric chemicals could revolutionize industrial processes. Its gravity fields might teach us new physics. But none of that matters if nobody's willing to go there and find it. Dr. Foster pulled up holographic displays showing human colonies throughout space. We currently have settlements on 47 worlds that other species classify as uninhabitable. Each one is home to millions of humans who are living normal, productive lives. The alien representatives stared at the data in amazement. Worlds with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, hostile wildlife were marked as thriving human colonies. Some had populations larger than entire alien worlds. "How is this possible?" whispered Ambassador Yilseth of the Ethereals. "Adaptation," Hayes replied simply. "Humans are very good at making hostile environments into homes. It's what we've always done," Captain Morrison added. "My crew survived on Kithra 7 for weeks, using nothing but basic equipment and determination. Given a few months, we could have built a permanent settlement there. Given a few years, it would have been a major colony." Implications of this revelation sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Humans weren't just capable of surviving on Deathworlds, they were actively planning to colonize them. Entire regions of space that had been written off as uninhabitable were suddenly potential human territory. Zathera asked the question everyone was thinking. What does humanity want from the galactic community? Hayes considered her words carefully. "We want what every species wants: friendship, trade, and mutual cooperation. But we also want to contribute. When disasters strike, when colonies are threatened, when someone needs help in a dangerous place, we want to be the ones who answer the call." "You want to become the galaxy's emergency response service," Elder Vashti said, with something like horror. "We want to be the people you call when nobody else can help," Hayes corrected. "When a ship crashes on a death world, when a colony is threatened by hostile forces, when someone needs rescue from an impossible situation, we want to be there," Ambassador the Cullah asked. "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing," Hayes said. "Surprising everyone, help isn't something you sell, something you give because it's the right thing to do." This concept was so alien to galactic thinking that several representatives needed translation clarification. Most species operated on carefully balanced exchange systems. The idea of providing aid without expecting payment or reciprocal favors was almost incomprehensible. Dr. Foster explained further. Human psychology is based on pack loyalty extended to species level. When humans are in danger, other humans respond automatically. We're beginning to extend that same loyalty to other species we consider friends. "But we are not your pack," Zethra pointed out. "Not yet," Hayes agreed. "But you could be. That's what we're offering. Membership in an extended human pack that protects its members no matter what the cost." The assembled aliens conferred among themselves in a dozen different languages. The offer was unprecedented. Humans were proposing a mutual defense arrangement based not on treaties or trade agreements, but on simple friendship and shared values. Elder Mothan voiced the concern many were feeling. "Admiral, your species is clearly powerful and capable, but power can corrupt. How do we know you won't use your abilities to dominate rather than protect?" Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "Because we've had the power to dominate each other for centuries, and we chose cooperation instead. Earth has enough nuclear weapons to destroy our planet 100 times over. But we use nuclear technology to power our cities. We could have conquered each other, but we chose to explore space together instead." She paused and looked around the room. "The same choice applies here. We could try to conquer the galaxy, but that would be stupid and wasteful. We'd rather make friends and explore the universe together." Captain Morrison added, "Besides, conquering people is a lot more work than helping them. We'd rather spend our time discovering new worlds than fighting over old ones." The logic was undeniably human, practical, direct, and based on long-term Thinking rather than short-term advantage, Ambassador Zathera made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. The Vidian Council will consider formal diplomatic relations with humanity. We are prepared to exchange ambassadors and begin cultural exchange programs. One by one, the other species representatives agreed. The nautiloids offered to share their water world colonization techniques. The resonants proposed joint mineral exploration projects. The ethereals suggested atmospheric research. Partnerships. But the most important agreement came from the Galactic Rescue Coordination Council. Within 6 months, human emergency response teams would be stationed at key locations throughout known space, ready to respond to disasters that other species couldn't handle.